Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Anna Clements, and this is Audiobooks with Anna, where we explore the fascinating world of audiobooks with industry experts. Well, today, thank you very much for joining us. You're here to listen in and join us with Pros and Convs, where we have conversations about words. And we've got the lovely Douglas Putnam and Judith Bareham have very kindly joined us today to talk about their meeting and working together on their project, the audiobook that they put together. So, Douglas, you were first up on the sofa, so let's begin with you. Can you give us an overview of your background, Douglas? You're the writer in the partnership. How did all that come about?
By accident.
These are the best stories. Go for it.
Yeah, I don't know. As an author, my story's kind of like one of those that I just sat down and I started writing in, I don't know, I think it was the holiday of 2022, Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday of 2022. I kind of sat down and, as I have over the years, I pulled a bunch of ideas together and was kind of jotting stuff down like I've done. Um, I was surprised to find I had documents going back to 1999 doing this, but for whatever reason, it something struck a nerve, and I stuck with it this time, and I ended up writing a full book. So it was, I guess it's kind of been one of those things that's been brewing for a long time, and it just kind of culminated into finally getting something published.
Oh,
So,
huge congratulations. What's your background and what's the
oh,
genre of the book,
yeah,
Doug?
I'm
Is
sorry.
there any connection there?
Nope. Well, other than if you call being an IT professional for 30 plus years and the nerddom and geekdom that comes from that, and being a fan of sci-fi and fantasy, my book is fantasy. It's a fantasy novel, and so that's pretty much what it is. It's kind of an origin fantasy. I think that's my niche in that I'm starting from scratch with the magic system as opposed to most fantasy books that tend to drop you in and then tell you all the history. I'm starting at the very beginning and building it out. And the first book was pretty easy actually to write. I had no writer's block, no problem. But book two is hard. There's a lot more going on. So I bet you Judith is like, when the heck is he going to be done with this thing?
Did you feel like there was a sense of world building? Were you conscious that this wasn't just going to be one book?
Yes, and that's interesting you bring that up because I did in my mind when I started, it was going to be a trilogy, the classic fantasy trilogy, and I actually hit a roadblock in book two where I was approaching 100,000 words in book two, and the first book was 170, and I'm like, I started having to do info dumps of information to get the story moving along in the world building and the characters and everything. And I just wasn't happy with it, and I had to really think about it long and hard. But I'm thinking the series may at least fall into four books. I've thrown the trilogy. I've thrown expectations of how many books it should be out the window, and kind of went back and I kind of rewrote some chapters and did a bunch of stuff and just kind of, I think I mentioned this in our previous conversation. You mentioned I had to rethink it. And so, yeah, so it's at least going to be four now. I don't know if it'll go farther than that. It depends on how much patience Judith has.
Very cool.
I have oodles. I have oodles of patience.
Judith, it's your
Yeah,
turn. Tell
sure.
us about your journey into audiobooks.
Oh, yeah. So I was actually thinking about this because I thought you'd probably ask me, and it's a bit of a hodgepodge. But I've always done theatre or been on stage or narrated. I was being asked to be the narrator for things, sort of in my teen years, high school years, and then adult years for Amdram and things. And then I took a coaching class I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I took a coaching weekend. Not a coaching weekend, I guess it was a weekend to discover if you'd like to do voiceover, like studios do. And I just kind of got bitten by the bug, I suppose, and thought, oh, I love this. And then I found a coach in Charlotte, coached with her for about 8 months, I think, and then did all the things. You start to think, oh, now I've got to do a website and all the stuff that goes with it. I think that was probably 6 years ago, and I sort of went professional, as it were. I landed some jobs, and I thought, this is super fun and super easy. Oh, how naive I was, because that was, I think, just a lucky break to start with. And it's been harder since. But yeah, I've just been sort of growing the audiobook for started with the ACX, and I've been fortunate to have some private clients along the way. And then, of course, COVID hit, and that was a bit weird. And then we moved house, and I was displaced, I guess, for 9 months. We were living with friends and didn't have somewhere, so I couldn't work for that portion. And then we moved, and then I had to have my booth built. So my husband built that from a spec thing for me. So there was a lull there. So that's why I say it's been a bit hodgepodge. I can't see, if you were to look at it on a graph, it would be very up and down. But it's been fun and incredibly growing for me. Just yeah, I think it's been the hardest thing I've probably done, but I love it.
That's brilliant. I love the idea of plotting our paths on a graph, because I don't think anybody's would be a particularly straight line. That's such a. I'm going to have you in for a much more in-depth conversation about this journey, because I think everybody's like, we've said this before, haven't we? That we need to have
Mhm.
a week when everybody comes up and tells their story, because we're all so very different. It's incredible. So tell me, now that I've got you on the mic, Judith, tell me how you came across Douglas.
Well, yes, it was interesting. So it all starts with my childhood friend Rachel, and I think she's actually listening on the call. So hi, Rachel. I've known Rachel since we were 11. And we were childhood friends. And she also has moved to, she's lived around the world, but she's landed in Texas and is friends with Doug. And I think it was this time last year, I got a text from Rachel asking if I knew much about audiobooks or some such thing. And that led to an introduction to Doug, who obviously had this book. I didn't realize that was where it was going at the time. So it's all really thanks to Rachel, honestly, because she's friends with Doug. She put me in touch with him. We had a Zoom call and met, and it was brilliant from the start because we both love bourbon. So that was, forget the book. That was just a great starting point. And he told me about this novel, and would I be interested in doing it? So hugely good for me. And I was flattered because he hadn't really known of my work, I don't think, had you, Doug, up until then?
I didn't, but I did. If you remember, I did ask you what was your favorite project, and the one where the daffodils bloom,
Oh,
I believe,
yes.
was the one you told me, and I did immediately download that and read that book. So I already kind of I knew your. I'm like, I hope she takes it. I hope she takes it, because I believe, if you remember, you had a little trepidation. One, the length and the genre, 'cause it was kind of
Hmm.
not what you're used to, and
Hmm.
then it did have some of the more adulty, gory, some of the fights. I mean,
Yeah,
you have to be cognizant of of what you put your name to in that regard.
right.
And so I was like, man, I hope she takes it. I hope she takes it.
That's right. Yeah, see, there you go. He's got the details. Yeah, so but it was great. My initial thing was it's a 19-hour audiobook, so I haven't taken on a job like that before. That was just a lot, and I wanted to do it justice. So but yeah, we met and talked about it, and I went off and read it, and I thought, oh, this is good, and I immediately had like all these brain sort of synapse moments going, oh, this character would sound like that, and I was scurrying down notes. So
I've just realized that we haven't asked for a title of the
no,
book.
I know.
Uh, could you give us one?
It's irrelevant. Irrelevant. You're here for the story behind.
The story. Doug, that's your baby, so you say.
It's called a New Age of Man, and for my elevator synopsis that I tend to give people is, the book starts literally with the last person in the world dying, and then the gods, the patrons, I call them, however you want to say it, have to kind of restart a new age of man. And for the first time ever, they'll have access to magic. So that kind of goes back to the origins bit that I discussed earlier, and how magic evolves, and how it's implemented in the new world. And of course, it goes awry. Humans are a pain in the butt, and someone discovers how to corrupt it. Yada yada yada.
Fantastic. It sounds wonderful. Do you know, I was about to move on to the concept of kind of how the beginning of the process, but I'm actually curious, Doug, where was this idea sitting with you for some time beforehand? Did you find that you were, thinking about it a lot before you began to write it, or did you choose to write it and it developed?
Honestly, it was fairly quick. I mean, I had all the ideas I mentioned earlier. I was running through them. I knew I wanted to write a fantasy novel. I mean, I have a lot of experience there, just in games I've played, books I've read, things of that nature. And somehow the origins bit popped into my head, and I'm like, I don't think I've ever read a fantasy origin novel. And so I started thinking about what that would entail, and it just took off from there, really. It was like I hit the ground running.
Fantastic. Talk to us then about the concept of beginning that journey. So you've talked about the fact that you met Judith and you were both, it sounds like, quite concerned about how this was actually going to work. And you mentioned that you downloaded one of her books and had a listen. What things were going through your mind with regards to how a book becomes an audiobook?
I was like what Judith mentioned earlier. I was completely clueless. I had no idea, because when I first published last year on April 1st, it was just the ebook, hardback, paperback. And I did some of the social media stuff, and then people are congratulating me, and all that jazz. And immediately you start having that culture of audiobook people chiming in, and they were like, "Where's the audiobook?" And I'm like, "Well, crap, I just got the publish just got this out." I had no clue whatsoever. I had done very little to no research. So when Rachel mentioned being friends with Judith and would I be interested in putting in contact, and I think initially, Judith, it was just maybe you to help me move along in down the
Ye-
road.
Yeah, that was, yeah,
Um,
correct.
and you and I emailed back and forth several times. And I believe, I forget who you put me in touch with, and I talked with them for a little bit, but they don't publish, and so the conversation came back to you, and then you and I just took off from there, and we had that Zoom call,
Mhm.
and the bourbon came out, and that was just simpatico, and the rest is history.
I think it was, yeah, it was a done deal at that point, really. But
Yeah. So, but I literally knew nothing, Anna. I mean, Judith has helped me learn more about it. I've learned more about the ACX piece, and how all that works. I don't pretend to understand the engineering that goes on behind the scenes with the gentleman that Judith uses, but he was fantastic. Also, I had several things at the end that we had to errors in the uploads and things like that needed to be fixed, and he just popped them right out. And yeah,
Yeah.
and the audiobook didn't come out till August, and I published in April 1st, and the audiobook has already outsold the ebook, all the print editions. And if you combine all the Kindle unlimited read pages into it's this many pages, and that would be this many books read. The audiobook is by far my bestseller.
That's fantastic news, and I'm sure that people are thrilled to get such a long book for their credit. It's there's something to be said for 19 hours of audio. It's fantastic. Judith, would you mind talking us through then your process, so how you construct and put together an audiobook, and what you were looking for from Douglas on a a brand new meetup, a new partnership, as it were. How did that go for you?
well, I have to say first off, and I have to give you a plug on this because at the time I had not taken your class. So now I will give a much better process probably having taken your class. So anyone who has not worked with Anna, I highly recommend that because she's brilliant about the starting that whole process off. However, because I didn't have that, my process was Sorry, I've just forgotten what you asked. Can you
Sorry,
say?
I was really, thank you for the plug. That was very kind. But I
Yes.
was really thinking about things that you were looking for from Doug, apart from the script. I mean, I'm
Oh, yes.
assuming that you received the script and you read it, which
Yes.
must have taken a while.
Yeah. Yes, it did. Yeah, I suppose I remember us talking, I had my ideas because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, are there 56 characters in this book? I've got something like that in my head.
Yeah, that's funny because when you initially asked me in an interview, you're like, okay, how many characters are we talking about? And I think you threw out 20. And then I emailed you back later that day, and I went back and I counted, and it was like 64, I
64.
believe.
Yeah, I had 56 or 64. That's right. That was a lot. As I was, so my process, I guess, was, obviously I read the book and I was jotting down. I'm like, this is a lot of characters as I was going. Not obvious, they're not all main ones, but still there was a lot. So my process, I suppose, to answer your question, Anna, was really more in that initial thing, talking through the characters, what he perceived them to be, and what I thought I would do with them, because it was such a hefty book. And I perhaps wouldn't do that with another author on a shorter book, or indeed I haven't. But because it was so vast, I wanted to make sure that I was going in the direction he wanted with it. Then, what else did I do? It's so long ago, isn't it? I can't remember what I did last week, never mind last year.
Please don't worry at all. When you read the script, did
Yeah.
you feel, were there particular characters that jumped out for you that felt obvious? Were you happy that you were going to just run with this and it was going to?
Yes.
I'm looking at the reviews and people are. I must read a couple because people are thrilled with the book.
Oh,
It,
I have to go look at them.
oh,
I don't like reading
oh,
reviews, so I
oh, well,
stay away
then
from them.
don't
Oh,
go and look. I will read you a couple. You don't need
okay.
to look. One says, I have over 543 books currently in my Audible collection. Out of all of those, I can say with absolute certainty, this book is within my top 5 most enjoyable listening experiences to date. Goes on
Well,
about the story at its very roots is a coming of age novel that has a progression fantasy frame, cozy slice of life roofing, and a great adventurous backyard. I mean, everybody,
wow.
there are a couple of, unkind ones, but generally it's a very well received book. People are thrilled with the building, with the characters. I loved how the author described the world and the characters. The person who read the story was terrific as well. Look forward to the next chapter. Just people being very excited about the book. So I'm wondering, when you read it,
Mm.
did you feel like it was something you really wanted to get your teeth into?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't wait to get started with it. Yeah, there were some. I don't know if other people find this with novels that they read, but there's some that you immediately go, yes. And I had that probably with a handful of them. I could hear them already, in my head. And there's one particular Mare is her name. She's Irish and she's fun. I have a lot of that fun, and I think the core characters in it, they were the ones that I immediately identified with. If well, maybe I didn't identify with them, but they jumped off the page. So yes, and then obviously the fill-in characters, you start thinking, ooh, they remind me of this person and that person. So I had a big Excel sheet with them and their quirks and physicality and all those things.
Wonderful. There's a question in the chat for Doug. Doug, did you go for natural names or did you create them?
That's funny. I was actually going to comment on that because I did throw her some curveballs. I believe Judith, the conversation we had on
Yes,
pronunciations was what, an hour and a
that's
half
true. I'd forgotten
Zoom
that.
call. And I will say, when I'm writing, I have the obviously a pronunciation in my head, and it was interesting to hear Judith's interpretation of just the printed word. And honestly, I think in most cases, I went with Judith's pronunciation because it just sounded better than what it was in my head, and I'm like, cool, and she went with it. So yeah, so that's the benefit of hiring a professional, right? So I was very happy with the way that turned out. But yes, I had a lot of made up names, and Judith, that call's probably going to double in book two. Sorry, but
Yay!
yeah, lots of made up names, a lot more characters in book two.
Lovely.
I think the biggest thing was it's probably like the tomato thing, the American way. That I think that's the longest thing that we had with it. The way I would say the name Aaron, Doug would say Aaron, and so just simple things like that. But if you keep saying it and it's coming up again and again in the book, you want to make sure. So I was writing out phonetically but it was that tomato thing for the most part.
No, no, absolutely. Yes, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
Funny that.
and one of the other things that I think Judith and I kind of broke that glass ceiling is that um, the main protagonist is male, and I chose a female narrator to do the entire book, and I I could not be happier with the result, and I think it's if anybody shied away from something like that or whatnot, I would encourage them to not shy away from projects or something like that, because I've been very happy with the way the book turned out, and I'm excited for her to do the rest of the books with me and continue the partnership. But I've had several people ask me that question: why did you choose a female narrator when your main protagonist is male? And I'm like, because she's good. Listen to the
Thank you,
book.
Doug. Thank you.
Pretty
We
simple.
often talk about the fact that it's a real matchmaking process, isn't it? You know, when you find a team member that you want to go into partnership with, it just works, and there's almost no explaining it. So I'm thrilled that you found your partnerships. Judith, talk to us then about the actual process, the practicalities of, did you send through a first 15? Did you upload each chapter as you went? What sort of
Mm.
a relationship did you have with Doug throughout?
Yeah, he was brilliant actually. He kind of left me. I mean, I gave him the first 15, as that's a sort of standard thing that I would do, anyway. And he loved that. And I think that's why we spent so long on the getting the characters' names and things like that correct, because I did want to get that right from the get-go. Because I did sort of say, okay, and this is a hard thing for authors. It's like, once I'm doing my thing, you probably won't hear from me a lot. Because it was a quite we took our time on it, so I wasn't rushing this book through. I did periodically send emails to say I'm still here, um, just to assure him. But yeah, I pretty much started and just went through it after that first 15, and then kept going with it, sending it off. I outsourced my editing because that's not my jam, and he would give me the pickups, and until it was done. Then there's that nail biting thing when you've done it and you just hope that the author loves what you've done, because I wasn't in touch with him a whole lot through that process of or giving him excerpts or anything like that. So yeah.
Yeah, if you remember, Judith, it was you weren't expecting to get hired, and so when you and I kind of finalized things, you had all these vacations planned,
Oh,
and so that was a
that
good
makes me sound
portion.
really bougie.
Well, it was pre-planned. You
Yeah.
guys had your thing, your family, and whatnot. And so you sent me the first 15, and I remember how ecstatic Holly and I were, and I even sent it to Rachel, and then you had vacations, and we hooked up on Instagram and whatnot, and I would see your pictures, your vacation pictures, and I'm like, but in the back of my head, I'm like, but I want my book. When are you going to be back from vacation? So there was a little bit of that. In the end, it was all the magic. So
Yes. I was very professional, can I just say? I mean, I was keeping it going. I wasn't like, I'm going off to
no, no,
Bermuda
no, I
and
didn't
I'm
mean
not
that.
coming
I
back.
didn't mean that.
I know you didn't.
No, you warned me ahead of time. You warned me.
I
So
did. Yes, I was
so
very professional.
yes, right.
Lovely. I'm glad to hear that communication was key. So, so are you happy to tell us how long it actually took you? Because 19 hours is a feat. That's pretty much two
It
books, isn't it?
is. Honestly, I'm really bad. I don't keep. I don't know if any of you in the room here keep a sort of an Excel sheet of how long it's taking you. So I mean, what is it? The rule of thumb is 1 to 3, isn't it? So for every finished hour, isn't that the correct ratio? One to
Yes,
three
yeah.
hours. Probably it must be up in the 50s or something, I suppose, if my math's correct. Because then you've got the pickups and things like that. So yeah, I can't give you a figure, but it was a long time. Um, and yeah, I think I said to Doug at one point, "Can you make it one of the chapters is really long? Is it 2 hours or something, Doug? I don't know." And I was like, "Can you not do that another time?" That
Yeah,
was a
you
bear.
got on to me on that one. Yeah, I've actually been very conscious of that in book two. It's going to be shorter a little bit, but it has more chapters.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that was the well, I mean, as all of you know who are in the room who are narrators, it's the I need air. I've got to come out. My booth's 4 by 6, and you don't have the AC on, so you're sweating buckets, and you have to come out and gasp for breath, and then go back in. So I mean, it was a long time, but it was because it was so well written. You know, we've all done things that we've done that perhaps haven't, floated our boat so much. And this, I couldn't wait to get to the next chapter because I wanted to see what was going to happen. Well, I mean, I knew what was sort of because I'd read it, but when you're in it and you're doing it, it feels different. It feels like you're more caught up in it in the moment.
Very much so, very
So,
much so. I often say that despite prepping books, I'm excited and devastated in turns as the book progresses. So it's quite
yeah,
bizarre, isn't it?
it
Yeah.
is.
And I will say, as the author, and I have over 700 audiobooks in my library. I've been an avid Audible guy for 12, 13 years. But when the finished product came, and I remember Holly and I, my wife, we sat down and we began listening to hear my words professionally read was surreal, and it was, I don't know, I don't know how to put it, the feelings into words, because as a longtime audiobook listener, I now had my words being read to me by a professional narrator. I don't know. I don't know. It was incredible. It was a really, really good feeling when the audiobook came out, and I was extremely excited.
That's wonderful. Can I ask about the upload? I know several authors worry when the narrator's done their job, they're really happy. Did you pre-listen, Doug, to the book before, when it got proofed and edited and mastered? Did you listen to it before it got uploaded to the internet, or were you happy for it to run and see what
Yeah,
happened?
yeah, we did. Judith, she, well, you guys know this, right? You have to do all the chapters and the things with ACX, and I had to learn that and get all that figured out. And so yeah, but it was not a contiguous read, right? I mean, I had all the bits and pieces and whatnot. So when the final product came out, and it was a, here it is. That was probably the first, continuous, beginning to end, plow through it kind of read, and yeah, it was very exciting.
Wonderful. And then again, authors often comment that, they finally got the product, they've got all the files, they've been edited and mastered, they're happy with the lot, they press yes. Were you happy with the amount of time it took for the book to actually get out? Because I know sometimes ACX is famous for, sometimes it's 3 days, sometimes it's 3 months, and nobody ever seems to have any kind of control over how long that takes. Were you by the end, kind of desperate to see it in real life out on the shelves, so to speak?
Oh God, yes. Yeah, yeah. In my mind, I wanted to press the button and then see it on the website, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Nothing
because I
quite
was I
like it.
was I was so anxious. I was so anxious. But I don't. I think it was maybe a week. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad.
Lovely. And you mentioned earlier that your audiobook is doing incredibly well, so huge congratulations to you, and the book generally, which is great. What advice would you give, Doug, now that you're an old hand? What advice would you give to another author who may be considering, finding a narrator and going through the whole process of starting their audiobook?
Yeah, you know, given how Judith and I accidentally came together, I don't know that I had to go through the normal process, right? I mean, how do you guys? I would assume, I've seen some of the other sites, how you hire a narrator off of ACX, and going through that process, and I'm like, I got lucky. I didn't have to do any of that, right? Judith just kind of fell in my lap. It worked, and yeah, I think I just got extremely lucky. So, but I don't know that I could have much advice. Maybe, on when I do a different book or something like that, and it's a different narrator, or I'll have to go through that process. But I don't know that I have a good answer for that. Just
No,
the
no,
only
it
thing I
it,
would
it
say, the only thing I would say is make sure it's someone you know that you can really be with, have a good relationship with, because I think I'm very much a relationship person, and that relationship that has fostered with Judith and I has to me was key and very important to me.
Yes, yeah, no, absolutely. I think it was more to do with the idea of, if would you recommend to other authors, in spite of their need perhaps, and you'd be surprised how many of us actually work with authors that we've bumped into or that we're introduced to through friends of friends or etc. So it's more common than you imagine. But the process in general, you seem to be generally very, very happy with your product.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, I did leave it in her hands. She was very right. I mean, I did not bug her as much as in my mind I was, anxiously waiting for stuff while she was working on the book, because I know 19 hours is a big book. But yeah, I go back. I would go back to that relationship piece. To me, that was key, because I feel I could probably, when it comes to book two, if there's going to be bits, I've already looked at bits and I'm like, okay, Judith, I want this. This is what this character is feeling and doing, and this is the emotion that may need, needs to be played out here. I would feel more comfortable in guiding her through certain things in my head that I intend that maybe don't quite come through in when you put word to page. You know what I mean? That's probably the biggest thing. One of the things I've learned. And that relationship plays key in that I think I can tell that to her, and she's not going to balk. Um, and we can
No, I won't.
coordinate. Yeah, and just coordinate there.
Yeah.
That will probably be the biggest thing in book two, in my mind. That there'll be a little bit more collaboration through that process than the first book.
Lovely. Do you think you're writing differently, Douglas, now for the second book because of your experience with the first, or had you begun writing it already while this whole process was happening?
Yeah, I probably had 40 or 50 pages of book two written before the first book came out, because there was an editing process in there, and you're kind of sitting and waiting on that, and so ideas were coming through on book two, and I just started jotting things down. But as far as writing, no, I think I'm maintaining the same type of prose and tone. The characters are growing up, and the world is expanding. So with different characters, different races, and things of that nature, you kind of have to think outside the box, as far as not every character, you can't anthropomorphize them all, right? You got to have some foreignness in there to add some spice. So that's been a challenge in that regard.
Yes, yeah. And are these books focusing your attention? Do you have any other books in you, any other genres or anything else that's kind of whispering in your ear while you're trying to write book two?
Oh yeah, I've got about five more ideas, and sometimes I will have to, I actually it's they're bouncing around in my head so much I have to get it out, and I so I'll there might be a because I have a full-time job as an IT manager. Nights and weekends are about the only time I can write, and I may chew up some of that time just getting those thoughts out of my head and onto a paper, so that I can focus back on on this series, and make sure it does. So yeah, I've got some others um, in my head for sure. So it's just finding the time. I have a stupid day job that gets in the way.
Indeed, indeed. Talk to us a minute about your process, Doug. So with your full-time job that is very necessary, unfortunately, are you very diligent about very specific times of day? Do you have a very set schedule whereby you write so you know you're going to get stuff out, or has this just has it taken you 15 years to write this first book?
No, it took about from the when I started the first draft through to publish was about 18 months for that 19-hour book. It actually went pretty quick. I burned some vacation in there, worked on weekends a lot. I mean, there were some 8 and 9 hour writing days in there. I mean, I was really anxious. I mean, there were a lot of other hobbies that fell to the wayside during book one. I think on book two, I'm a little more balanced. I have doing, I allow some other hobbies to creep in, but I tend to be a morning writer. Is how it. I'll wake up, and a lot of times I'll be thinking about things. And as Holly can attest, she'll wake up maybe an hour or two after I do, and find me upstairs, secluded in my in my room, writing away. So I tend to be a morning writer, and if I can get 3 to 4 hours a day, maybe five on the weekend, on Saturday and Sunday, I call that a pretty good writing weekend. So
Incredible. Yeah, no, no, that's great. It just, as a lot of the narrators that are here and that, that are will listen to the replay often have, full-time or even part-time jobs and are trying to narrate, at the end of a workday or on a weekend. And of course, then family and so many other things come in. So huge congratulations to you for the commitment and the dedication. It takes, it takes time and it takes effort, and you did it. So huge congratulations. Tell me how it feels to be a published author. Did you imagine during those 18 months that was actually going to work? It was actually going to happen, or is it now feeling like it was just meant to be?
um, I don't know. It was. I think when I actually got the first draft done, it took about 7 months, and I had that first draft done. It started to sink in a little bit. I'm like, I actually wrote this. I mean, and at the time I think the first draft was about 440 pages. And then by the time it was edited and and I did this, second draft, or, going through all the different drafts, by the time it got to Judith, it was 530. Judith, is that right? 540, something like that.
Something like that,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
but when that first draft got done, and that's when I think it struck me. I'm like, I have a book here. Now it needs some polish, obviously, but you know, I've got a story, and I have ideas for how it's going to follow, and yeah, I don't
That's
know. It was
fantastic.
yeah,
I
No,
should
it's
no.
jump in. Can I just jump in here and say,
Yes.
yeah,
actually, Doug, you got an award as well, didn't you? What is the award? It's the silver. Tell them about
yeah.
that, because that was your first book and you've got an award. So
I did. I submitted a couple. I submitted the book. Now it was the ebooks. Unfortunately, it wasn't your narrated book, because they didn't have that. But the BookFest and Global Book Awards both had a fall, awards contest, and I took home silver on both of those for epic fantasy category on both of those. So that was some validation. Holly, she's like, this is good. This is great. And the other piece of that is,
Well, no, Doug, we need to know what she said.
yeah, she reminded me that, if when they gave out the people who won the gold award, the first place award, and those for both of those contests were professional author. I mean, they,
Yeah.
in the sense that, not that I'm not professional, but they had many, many books under their belt. This was literally book one for me. I self-published, you know, I generally didn't know what I was doing through most of the process. It was learned, and there was some vindication there, and
Wonderful.
yeah, it felt
No,
good. It felt
indeed.
good.
Huge congratulations to you. Not everybody gets to take home silver, so congratulations. That's on your first book. That is stunning. Was the process of the editing and the story editing and so on of the actual book itself? Was it what did you have somebody like Judith who was walking you through the process of publishing your book, or did you actually just have to learn as you went along, as it were?
No, I hired an editor. She was from Austin, Texas, here, and she herself is an author, and she also does editing. And she and I had a good relationship. Are you guys familiar with Reedsy? Aren't
Yes,
you?
the
Yeah,
online. Yes, yeah.
yeah. I actually used Reedsy for hiring her and my cover design, and I was very happy with both of those relationships also. But she coached me a lot on, the show not tell. My first draft was horrible in that regard, and I'm sure you guys have narrated books where the author, you know, he said adverb, she said adverb too much. And mine was very bad with that. So she coached me on that. She coached me on some flow. I had to rearrange some things because how it's happening in my head, I already know the before and the after so well. You have to. I think she kind of coached me in how to make sure that for someone who doesn't have all of the bits and pieces in their head like I do, how to get that to the page in a way that flows properly. So that continuity piece, she helped me with that quite a bit too.
Makes the entire process easier. I can imagine that the otherwise you're stuck not knowing what you don't know, which is often what we say
And I
here.
did not know a
Um,
lot. Trust me.
Love that. Thank you. Judith, do you want to, is there anything you'd like to share with regards to sort of upcoming projects? Or we know that Douglas is going to be busy writing you a second, the second novel. Do you have anything you're working on at the moment you want to share with us, or anything, I don't know, that's been
Yeah.
happening to you?
No, no, I wish there was. I not at the moment. What am I doing? I'm actually very involved in my theatre world outside of audiobooks, but so I'm getting more and more involved, which I love because I love the theatre and I love stage productions. So that is outside of work. That is filling me a lot.
Fantastic.
And yeah,
Because is it North Carolina you're based?
it is. It's Charlotte, North Carolina.
You,
Yes,
you,
indeed. Yeah.
you've all that whole area was hit so badly last year by the hurricanes and so on. I'm thrilled that sort of the infrastructure of people being able to go out and still do theatre and so on is still
Yeah.
happening. Have you been very affected by that at all? Is everything doing
Yeah, not
better
us
now?
because we're about 3 hours west of that area, but so fortunately we're not. We have friends who have been very severely impacted and been trying to help them a little bit. But no, it has, and I do have VO people that I know that live there who have been impacted sadly. So I'm, fortunate in the sense I'm distanced from it. But no, absolutely. I don't know. Theatre just seems to be. It's a fairly new theatre where I'm living. It's 3 years old, but people are very excited and want to get involved from the community. So that's great because I'm all about that.
Yeah, we're all about community. That's fantastic. Well, huge congratulations to you, and I hope you have a
Thank you.
fabulous time.
Thank you.
Well, to both of you, is there anything I haven't asked that you'd like to share before we close up?
No, but I just want to make sure, Judith, you gotta put aside some of that for me when I get this second book done.
Yes, okay. I will get my Excel spreadsheet extra long and ready for all these extra characters.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited. So hopefully, I'll still continue to, the ball still rolls for book one, and
Mm,
I'm looking forward to getting the rest done and working with
absolutely.
Judith and
Thank you.
moving on down.
Thank you. You've been it's been so sweet of you to say that, and I'll just encourage any of you joining. Yeah, don't be in trepidation of taking on a large book because it was actually a lot of fun, and yeah, I hope that you find equally satisfying relationships with your authors because it has been truly it's been like there's a big bow on the top of it. You don't always get that, and that's been really lovely.
Oh, how fantastic. I'm so pleased that you've had such a great experience and so grateful that you came along to share it here with us. Well done to you both. Well, today we talked to Douglas Putnam and Judith Bareham. My takeaways: A New Age of Man, the 19-hour audiobook sounds fabulous, and I'm sure Douglas would be very happy for you to read the ebook too, but obviously the audiobook is what we're all about. Thank you very much to everyone who joined us today, and thank you always to everybody who comes along and listens. We couldn't do it without you. So let's go out and be our favourite selves. Thank you very much, everybody.